Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar on preparing your graduate application. My name is Stephanie Forsyth and I'm the manager of graduate admissions at the University of Waterloo. Our presenter today is Julie McMillan, the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions. We're excited to share some tips and tricks with you today to assist you in getting ready to apply to graduate studies at the University of Waterloo. I have a few housekeeping items before we begin. Today's format will be a live presentation followed by a question and answer session. Attendee video and audio functions are disabled. If you have questions at any time during the presentation, you will have access to the Q&A function at the bottom center of your screen, and you can type your questions there. If you require closed captioning, please click the CC icon at the bottom right corner of your screen. If your question is flagged to be answered during the Q&A following the presentation, it will remain pending until it is answered live, and otherwise we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible in the background during the presentation. Lastly, any links mentioned will be added to the chat box during the presentation, but the presentation is being recorded and will be posted to our GSBA website and emailed to you after the presentation as well. Before we proceed, I would like to share that the University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building. I would now like to introduce Julie McMillan, the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at the University of Waterloo, who will be speaking to you about preparing your graduate application.
Thanks, Steph. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. The University of Waterloo has been defying tradition since 1957, when a group of business leaders imagined integrating academic and research excellence with work-integrated learning. Today, the best and brightest are drawn to the university and continue that spirit of innovation for global impact now and into the future. We are very proud to be Canada's #1 comprehensive research university, and we have been for the last 15 years via Research InfoSource. The University of Waterloo has over 42,000 full and part-time students cumulatively between our undergrad and graduate programs. About 6,600 of those are graduate students, 2,200 being our doctoral or PhD students, 2,100 in professional masters, and another 1,800 in our research master's programs. We have a 1,000-acre main campus, which is located here in Waterloo, as well as 3 satellite campuses in Kitchener, Cambridge, and Stratford. Waterloo is proud to have a large cohort of international graduate students, and as I said, we do have over 6,600 grad students, of which 40% of those are international. To support our international admissions, we have several specific resources on hand. We have our international admissions equivalencies, which is essentially an unofficial grade conversion that just shows you what's required by location, as well as type of degree and overall GPA needed. We have our admission and English language proficiency requirements, which talk about the academic requirements as well as the English language requirements. We also have our international agreements and sponsorships for those students who are coming through under a formal sponsorship agreement. Finding the right graduate program that aligns with your academic interests, educational background, and your ideal career path is important. We do have over 180 graduate programs here at the University of Waterloo, each with a very unique offering. Understanding the types of programs will help you select the program that is right for you. Our course-based master's programs are designed to help you prepare for advanced professional practice. Courses may involve projects such as an MRP, major research paper, or an industry project. Our courses will help you develop communication, critical thinking, and technical skills, all of which will support you into your future career. Research-based master's programs have a research focus. You need to be self-motivated and interested in building your knowledge in a specialized area. This can lead you to a rewarding career in the public or private sector, or provide a foundation for pursuing research at the doctoral level. PhD programs or doctoral programs allow you to continue to focus and develop your research. This can lead you to a career in industry or academia. You will write and submit a doctoral dissertation of independent and original work. Each of our programs have their own unique program page overview, which basically gives you at-a-glance information on application deadlines, any of the graduate research fields or graduate research areas. This can tie back to our coursework programs as well, as they are then called specializations. It includes our study options, full-time, part-time, any minimum admission requirements, as well as approximate tuition and contact information for the program directly. And while the university establishes minimum guidelines, which I have listed here on the slide between both our master's and doctoral admissions, it's important to note that your program may indicate higher or additional requirements. So most of our master's programs have about a 75 to 78 admission requirement for entry. And if you're looking at our doctoral programs, it's probably 80% or higher for admission. When you have a look at the program page, specific information like that is also included. I'd also like to point out that when you're applying to our master's programs, we are looking for that minimum overall standing in the last 2 years for any domestic credentials, but we're looking for the overall standing in your complete program or degree when you're looking at international credentials. So I will speak a little bit more about finding a supervisor, contacting your referees, as well as our English language requirements next. But right now, I just wanted to go over some of the additional supporting documentation that is required. So when you're looking at our transcripts and degree certificates, you are asked to declare all post-secondary education. So this includes any incomplete or in-progress programs. You would then upload an unofficial copy at the time of application, and if an offer of admission is made, we would ask for that official copy to be received direct from the institution at that time. We have our supplementary information form, which is known as the SIF. This would include program-specific questions that they are looking for you to provide additional information on, as well as possibly a statement of intent or purpose. Some programs ask for a resume or CV. Some may also ask for a writing sample, and that writing sample can include previously completed or published work. We also may ask for a GRE or GMAT scores. This is not required by all programs. That too is listed on the specific program page. And then a portfolio submission is required only if you're applying to our MFA or Master of Fine Arts or Master of Architecture program. So the official language of instruction here at the University of Waterloo is English, and it is our responsibility to ensure that all students have the English language skills to succeed. So we currently have 3 bands or levels of English language scores that are required, and your program would fall into one of these bands. So again, if you look at the specific program page for the program of interest, we will have outlined what the ELP requirements are for that program. So on the slide in front of you today, you'll see our 2 most common test scores, which are TOEFL and the IELTS academic. We've also included our English for Academic Success. The English for Academic Success program is offered through Renison University College, their English Language Institute. And it's an intensive full-term program designed to help you improve your English language proficiency or meet the admission requirements. In addition to the TOEFL and IELTS and EFAS, we also accept the CALE, the PTE Academic, and the Cambridge English. So ELP exemptions, which we do receive a number of questions about, can be confirmed by reviewing the information on our website. So there are a list of conditions that must be met at the time of application for you to be considered exempt. And that link will be dropped into the chat as well. So I think probably our second most asked question is, how do I find that supervisor? This information is obviously tied to those programs that do require a supervisor, so our master's research and doctoral programs. It's very important to know ahead of applying if the program you are interested in requires that you have made that connection ahead of submitting your application. So we have included that information as well on our program pages. I would suggest 2 examples would be our biology program as well as our earth sciences program. They do want you to have made that connection ahead. So I think if you're looking at how to find and make a connection with the right faculty member, it's important to look at what resources are already available to you. So if you visit the department website that is attached to the program of interest, you will be able to access sort of their faculty listing page. From there, you can review the faculty member profiles and determine who might be a good match for you based on their area of research, as well as possibly other students in the projects they're working on. So that would allow you to possibly develop a short list and then connect with that faculty member. So when you are making that connection, we do ask not to send a generic email. Really, there's nothing less authentic than just having that copy and pasted template that you've just popped someone's name or institution or program in and out. Make it thoughtful and meaningful. So know what you're interested in researching and articulate your research interests well. Also do your homework. So investigate the program you're considering applying to, read their website, and show that you know about the program. Also know who you're writing to. So does their research align with your interests? Will they see you as a colleague who can help them with their research? Another great place to understand and get to know a faculty member's research is on Google Scholar. So here you can read abstracts from their research publications and also learn about their specific research area. Also, just be mindful of their time. While it's important to open the door for that initial connection, you can also consider possible discussions later on. So maybe do that first intro over email, maybe recommend a virtual chat or get together in person if possible, whatever works best for the situation and the people involved. And then finally, be concise. So you will have a more considerable impact if the information shared is to the point and if you are being very succinct in what you're saying. So references are also an essential part of your application. Your referees will be completing and submitting a confidential online reference form. So it's important to choose referees who know your skills and experience, who can communicate your ability to succeed as a graduate student. We recommend contacting your referees with at least 4 weeks notice before the application deadline, and then also ensure that your referees are available and willing to complete the reference form before that application deadline. So we do have two options for references here at Waterloo. We have academic and professional. When you're looking at academic, you're choosing referees who know your skills and experience and who can communicate your ability to succeed as a graduate student. They will be asked to refer to your academic performance and your potential as a graduate student. If you are in a research program that includes a thesis or research paper, we would expect that the supervising faculty member would be one of your referees. This referee would be able to explain your commitment to deadlines, how you respond to critique, and whether you were able to successfully implement feedback to your work. So is there a faculty member with whom you've discussed your broader goals? Your referee will have more to say about you if they understand some of your career aspirations or what and why you're interested in studying further. When looking at the professional referees, they are typically senior level employees or employers or supervisors. They need to be able to attest to your possession of the skills and experience required for program admission. So have conversations with your referee about your career goals and why this program will help you reach those goals. The more they understand why the graduate program you're applying to will help you reach your career goals and how they will impact your career aspirations, the easier it will be for them to incorporate this information into their reference for you. Also, referees will be asked to articulate how strong you are in terms of professional skills such as leadership and communication, so be sure they have positive things to say about you. So when asking for a reference or for a referee to support your application with a reference letter, while it may seem obvious, I do think it needs to be said that you should make sure to ask them if they are willing and able to be a referee for you before you submit their contact information as part of your application. Um, Approach people in a manner that is appropriate to your professional relationship with them. So be clear as to why you've decided to reach out to them specifically. Maybe ask for a face-to-face meeting if you can, but also email, virtual chat. There are so many options out there now. So just do what is most appropriate for this specific individual. Another option is even to visit them during office hours if they are local and available to you. So be sure to leave lots of times. We know your referees are busy people and filling out the reference form does take time. So ensure that they understand the submission deadline and give them that 4 to 6 weeks notice Our application system does give referees 2 weeks to complete their reference letter. The reference form itself doesn't expire, but we send them reminders to encourage them to have it completed. But again, we ask that you start that at least 4 to 6 weeks ahead of the deadline. So provide your referees with your academic and professional background. Your referee can craft a more robust reference letter by giving them access to your transcripts and your CV or resume. And send a gentle reminder about a week before the deadline if they've not already submitted your reference letter. And then finally, make sure to thank them. So send a quick note as a thank you, and then follow up with them to let them know if you were accepted into a program. So many of our programs have fixed application deadlines, typically February 1st for a fall start, which is September. That being said, we do have some programs with earlier dates in December. I know that our math programs and psychology, which is associated with our Faculty of Arts, they do have earlier deadlines. So the sooner you apply, the better. And again, most admissions are for the fall term, which is a September start date. That being said, we do have some programs that offer a rolling admission, so they may have start dates in winter or in spring. All of that is listed on our program page as well. And from time to time, we are able to accept late applications. I would say this is not the norm. And so I do encourage you to get your application in and also to understand if the application or the program you're applying to, just to understand if the application deadline for them is you must have your completed application in by a date, or if you must have your application started by a date. There are a few different configurations of how this works across our programs. And so all of that again is laid out on our program page. Very important for you to just take a look at that, and feel free to reach out to myself or anyone in our team if you have questions. So just a quick overview of where we are in the process so far. So you've researched your program, you know the application deadline, you understand the admission requirements. This is both academic, English language proficiency, any other test scores. You've connected with a prospective supervisor if it is applicable for the program you're applying to. You've contacted your referees and you've gathered your supporting documents. So that means you're ready to complete the online application. So first, you need to have available to you your personal information, address, academic background, test scores, professional background, which is your work experience, and your referees' names and email addresses. During this process, your referees are emailed about 2 to 3 business days after this step is completed. So that's also why it's important that we ask you to connect with them and understand that they really are available ahead of submitting your application. So you complete the application, you submit your application, pay the application fee, and then within 1 to 2 business days, you will receive an email from us with instructions on how to claim your identity, which is your user ID and password to access Quest. And Quest is just Waterloo's student information system. So the email does include your 8-digit Waterloo student ID number. This is essentially your unique identifier while you're at Waterloo. I encourage you to include it in all communications that go out, whether you're connecting with a program or our office or any other office on campus. It just makes it a lot easier for us to find your file quickly. And then once you've claimed or activated your user ID and password, you can log into Quest. And again, at this time, your referees will also have received an email with a link to our confidential reference form. So once you've accessed Quest, you can upload your supporting documents. And to do so, you're literally just logging into Quest. You're navigating to the admission tab and selecting documents in your student center. You will see a list of the documents that you need to upload and complete based on your program. And your application is considered complete once you've uploaded all of the required documents and your referees have completed and submitted their reference forms. So the document status will change from initiated to completed under your document listed Quest, and then completed applications will be reviewed following the application deadline. When you're looking at your document list as well in your student center, there is a brief minute or two while it might say upload in progress, and that's perfectly normal. Depending on the size of the document, it may take a little bit longer. It should reflect fairly quickly that it's been completed. So if you have any trouble, you're welcome to reach out. So we understand that you're eager to obtain an admission decision, and it is our goal to issue a decision as quickly as possible so that you have adequate time to both review that and any other offers that you may have in hand, and then also to make a decision. So application processing timelines can vary by program and faculty, but generally you can expect a decision within 8 to 12 weeks of the application deadline. A link will be dropped into the chat that shows you a little bit more information on the processing timelines by faculty. But just to give you a brief overview, your application is first reviewed by the program to which you have applied. It is here that the program manages the supervisor review process, if applicable, and then applicants selected by the program are recommended for admission, and the application is sent on to the faculty associate dean's office. So the faculty associate dean's office then reviews the application. All applications that are approved are then sent on to graduate studies and postdoctoral affairs. And once they arrive here, it is the admissions team that also reviews your application to verify admissibility and then assigns that final decision, whether it be admit or deny. And so once an admission decision has been made, applicants will receive an email and an admission decision will appear in Quest. And then you can view and print the electronic offer of admission letter. So Waterloo is home to an incredible community of people with diverse backgrounds, abilities, and interests. And we're committed to ensuring that you can access and meaningfully participate in your education. So at any point during the application process or while you're a registered student, we encourage you to contact our Accessibility Services Office for advice, information, and support. And it is through the accessibility website that you could request a disability-based graduate admission accommodation if needed. As well, campus housing can support your housing journey, whether you be looking to live on campus or off campus. And thank you so much for sticking around with us so far. I think we're going to move to the live Q&A and answer some of the questions that have come through to chat.
Thank you so much, Julie. We have lots of good questions that have come in.
Great.
So let's get started here. The first one is, I noted about the availability of TA and RA positions on your website. Can students be considered for such a position while applying for admission?
Yes and no. So we have some programs that will make offers that incorporate TA-ships right into the offer. We have other programs that require you go through some specialized training before they will release TAs. And so it's only once you're in program that you would have access to apply for those TA-ships. So it's sort of a mixed answer.
Thank you. So here's a question about references. If an application requirement is for 2 academic references, but the person wants to submit 1 academic and 1 professional reference, is it possible, or would their application be rejected?
My recommendation is that you connect with the program before you decide to change your references. Some programs have some leniency, and so it's really at their discretion if they are able to make that change. I do know there are a few programs who look at length of time out of school to possibly consider replacing an academic with a professional. So it's a little bit of a varied response depending on the program. So I would reach out to them and ask that question of the program directly.
Great. Does applying well before the deadline give any advantage, or are all applications judged equally?
Generally speaking, all applications are judged equally. That being said, we as an institution are working towards sort of enrollment strategies around making early offers where possible. So if we have a really strong candidate in our applicant pool, there is a possibility of an early offer going out. Not guaranteed, but there's always that possibility.
Now, this goes back to trying to find a supervisor.
Yep.
What if the professor that you're emailing is not responding to your emails?
It is a challenge. We do hear this a lot. Something I wonder, are they accepting students? Is there any way you could connect with the program directly? Each program has a staff member who is essentially the coordinator that would, shepherd our applicants through the process. It's possible that that faculty member is not available to take students or is overwhelmed at the moment with too many options and too many emails coming through. So we recognize that, we don't always get those timely responses. So my recommendation is try the program, see if they can support you. and then possibly try other options within that program as well.
And can you touch on if acceptance from a professor is vital to a successful admission?
Yes. So we have some programs. I think I spoke to a couple. Biology is one, earth sciences is another, where they would like you to have made that connection ahead of time. So from their experience, if you do not have basically that verbal okay from the faculty member that they would like to work with you, the likelihood of them being able to circulate your application and find a match is very small. And so they recognize this, and their recommendation to you is to find a supervisor ahead. We have other programs, I would say the Faculty of Engineering, where they are willing to circulate your application and try and find a match without you having made that connection ahead. I said, in any case where you've already made a connection with a faculty member who has said, yes, I would like to work with you, that is one additional step completed in the application process. They still have to vet your application for, have you met the admission requirements? Do you have all the other required documentation? All of that still happens, but that connection with the supervisor, once it's there, definitely checks the box and makes things a little bit easier.
Here's a good question. This person has a course-based master's degree and they want to know if they can apply to the PhD program.
Generally, no. There's an exception where the Faculty of Engineering at Waterloo will consider University of Waterloo Master of Engineering programs, which are coursework, for admission into PhD, but that's within UW only. Generally speaking, outside of that, no. It would be very rare.
Does the University of Waterloo provide any financial assistance to international students?
So we do have minimum funding requirements for PhD and minimum funding guidelines for master's programs. And we do have specific funding at the PhD level for which we call a tuition differential, which essentially is an international doctoral graduate student award that offsets the cost of international tuition so that when you pay out at the end, you are still paying essentially domestic tuition. We do have some international sponsorships and agreements with Latin America, China, Vietnam, a few others, where you can apply through those funding agencies within those specific countries, and that money can be used to either provide complete coverage or partial coverage of your cost of attending Waterloo.
I think you've touched on this a little bit, but this is a question that a lot of potential students do have concerns about. So if both a student and professor are interested in working together, does that increase the chances of admission being approved, assuming all of the required criteria are met?
Yes, it's definitely helpful. As I said, there has to be that supervisory match when you're in a research-based program. For our coursework programs, there's a little bit of a different approach to admitting you because that supervisor isn't required. So they're looking at quality of work experience, quality of academic excellence, and that stuff gets taken into consideration. But when you have to have a supervisor working with you, definitely that connection is needed ahead. And so if you've already made that connection, that's great. I would say you're halfway there.
Thank you. All right. Housing has been a concerning issue recently. Does the university provide sufficient on-campus housing depending on the number of applicants, or is there a limit in that there might be more students admitted than available housing, which requires students to get off-campus housing?
Yeah. So at the graduate level, there are a few specific graduate communities. There is some single graduate housing and some family housing. There's definitely not enough on-campus housing to support all of our students. And so we recognize that as an issue. There is quite a bit of off-campus housing around the university. But that being said, we are also a dual university town, and we also have a college. So there is some competition for housing, and we do recognize that that can be an issue.
Okay, here's a question that we get quite often. How would you recommend reaching out for academic references when you have been out of school for about 3 years and aren't sure if professors will remember you?
I think you really just have to take that first step. So they don't, and the hope is that there is some relationships that are memorable. The rest of it is you providing as much information as you can to that faculty member so that they can support you in writing that reference. They can look back at their own records and notes. You can provide them with your transcript and your CV. You can let them know why you were interested in this program and why you think they are a good referee for this application. So I think having that communication and connection will allow you guys to speak. And that's really what you need. It's just that they are willing and able, and make sure that they understand, I guess, what program you are going into and why. Very similar to what I said during the presentation. If you have that connection and they are willing to listen to you, then you're basically letting them know what you would like to do moving forward and why this is important and what they can do to help support that. And they'll let you know if they can or can't do it. That's all you need. If you ask the question, you'll find out, and then you can move on to another option.
Excellent. This question has been asked repeatedly. Can you apply for an application fee waiver?
At the moment, we do not have application fee waivers available. So we did make some concessions during sort of the Ukraine crisis and the Iran issue, but what's happening is the volume right now is too great for the university to manage it. So we have options where our faculty members and programs can support fee waivers if they are able to. So this allows a little bit more availability across the board instead of just it living with grad studies and postdoctoral affairs. But generally, no. Is something that we would expect the programs or the supervisor in who is interested in working with you to support.
So we know that we have many wonderful co-op options in graduate studies at the University of Waterloo. Yeah. A question came in: if I apply to both co-op and non-co-op stream, will that reduce my chances of getting accepted into the co-op program?
No, not at all.
Okay, let me just see here. Okay, here's a question about the duration that a test score might be valid for. So somebody said they completed their GRE back in 2019. Can they use that same score to apply now?
Yep, GREs are typically valid for 5 years from the date they're taken, so that should be fine.
Another question about co-op. Regarding co-op graduate studies at the University of Waterloo, are co-op positions guaranteed, or what would happen in the event that someone was not able to obtain a co-op placement?
So that's a good question. I think I'm not aware of too many issues around finding co-op placements. That being said, we do have a number of co-op streamed programs that are new. So my assumption is in the event that there was an inability for you to find a co-op placement, that you would either push that off to another term or consider moving into the non-co-op stream. Right now, I understand that the programs that have initiated these co-op streams are looking at a smaller cohort of students to help support making sure that we can meet the needs and find the appropriate roles. I know we are also working very closely with co-op in question to help support making sure we have the right employers in place and the right level of position to support sort of a graduate level work placement.
How easy is it to switch from a course-based master's to a thesis-based master's once in program?
So the act of switching is not difficult at all. I think that what the challenge will be for you is to find that faculty member who is willing to support that transition. So again, you can't be in a research-based program without having a faculty member to supervise you. So the benefit, I think, of starting in a coursework program and completing a term gives you an opportunity to show your academic skill and strength of work, and then also to meet the faculty members and to get to know them and build sort of a relationship with them. So I think once you know each other, it's a little bit easier to sort of get a sense of how well you might work together, and from there, create a potential match.
Great. So we know that when students apply, they are asked to list any supervisors they might like to work with. Would a professor be able to see all of the names listed as potential supervisors in an application?
Yes. Right now they can, because it's included on the application summary document within a program. So if you're applying, yeah, so within the program, they would be able to see it. Normally, it's a little bit different across programs as well, but normally what happens is for those faculty members that you've listed, they would sort of get first right of refusal. So the order in which they're placed on your application is not level of, or not order of preference. It's just, we understand there are 3 individuals that you're interested in working with. And so from there, it would be, they would have first right of refusal. So the application, once complete, would be sent to them for review. They'd have a look at it. If they're not interested in working with you, it would come back to the coordinator, who might then say, what is your area of research? Do we have any other open faculty members? I'm going to send it out to them for review. And when that sort of comes back, there may be a yes, there may be a connection there. If there's nothing, it might get sent out to the broader office to see if there's interest. And so there's sort of a layered approach. And then at the end, if there is a potential match, then your offer would be made with that match. And if there isn't one, then your application may be declined.
Thank you. So can a student be enrolled in one program, but supervised by a faculty member in another?
Yeah, that is a possibility. We have cross appointments that happen internally. Depending on the program, they may ask that there be co-supervision, or they may just allow that faculty member to be considered cross-appointed within their department.
And kind of touching on that, what if an applicant wants to apply to 2 different programs? Do they need to submit 2 different applications and pay 2 application fees?
They do. So our application process is somewhat decentralized, where it is our programs who first review your application. So really, to apply to be considered by both of those programs, you do need to have 2 separate applications submitted. There have been cases where applicants maybe apply to a similar program. Like, I would say a good example would be ECE and computer science. We have many faculty members who are cross-appointed. And from time to time, a faculty member might say, you know what, I have this student, they applied via program A. I'd like to work with them, but I think they're better suited to be in program B. And so in cases like that, we can move your application, but it's really only being considered once by one faculty member.
Regarding references, can a potential research supervisor complete a reference on your behalf? So like the faculty member who's going to accept the student, can they complete a reference in support of the acceptance?
So they can, but I would have a caveat that there has to be a reason. It can't just be because they want to take you. Maybe, so if we have somebody who's completing a UW undergrad or a master's program and wants to continue on into a PhD, it would make sense that their master's supervisor, if they're the same person, could write a letter of support. If there's no connection other than they want to work with you, that doesn't make any sense to us, because they're not speaking to current knowledge. So they haven't worked with you in any capacity. They haven't completed any research projects with you. So it's really important that, you look at the program you're in. The Faculty of Engineering is a good example of a faculty that has also created additional guidelines around what they want to see and what they will accept in terms of references. So there has to be meaningful connection there for them to accept it.
Somebody's asking if they can have access to a list of potential supervisors to connect with, where they can find that information.
So your best bet really is on the department website. So let's say you're interested in applying to Pure Math. So Pure Math is within the Faculty of Math. They have their very own website. On their main departmental page, they will have faculty listings, they will have research groups, they will have lots of information that will connect you to areas of study, areas of research, and who is working within those. And from there, you can sort of develop an idea of what projects sort of align with what you were hoping to do, and who seems like they could be a good fit. And you can sort of initiate some of that conversation to see who might work in terms of being a good supervisory match.
So regarding coursework programs,
Yep.
do I need to connect with a supervisor for a course-based program?
No. So coursework programs do not require a supervisor. They are typically you completing a set amount of coursework. Those programs that have supervisory requirements are thesis-based research masters or doctoral programs.
Somebody in the audience joined a bit late. They wanted to know if this is going to be recorded and shared with attendees.
Yes, it will be recorded. Any of the links that were provided throughout the presentation will also be included at that time. I believe it will be emailed out to all of our registered attendees.
So a question about ELP tests.
Mhm.
If I do not meet the minimum score in English in my English test, but I'm close to it, is it possible that my admission might be accepted?
It is possible. Again, it's important to understand what the program requirements are. So we do have some programs in health that will not deviate from their required scores. If you do not meet the ELP scores, they will not consider your application. That information is included on their program page and they include it on their websites. It's also important to note that the Faculty of Engineering, a number of their departments and programs use what is considered our lower band scores. And so we really can't admit below that. And then we have sort of that standard set of scores and we have our higher scores. So if the program is willing to support it, they may, and your score is like very close, maybe if you're taking TOEFL, it's like 1 or 2 points below. They can recommend that you take an English for multi-language speakers course during your program, typically in the first term, to help support your sort of weak link. So maybe it's writing, maybe it's speaking. They can ask for that, but that's really dependent on the program and sort of them deciding that your overall application is strong enough and that there's enough evidence that you will still be successful.
Wonderful. So somebody asked if they can apply for a master's program that might vary from their background in their bachelor's. So they have a bachelor's degree in political science, but they're interested in gender studies as an example.
That's a great question. I think it is going to be dependent on the program. So I know that there are some of our grad programs that are very specific that they want you to have the applicable background. And in some cases it makes sense. It would be difficult to go in from, probably a Master of Arts to a physics degree. But I think if there's a more common connection and a little bit less of a difference that is possible, I would reach out to the program, take a look at what's listed on their program page. It also links you from there to their department website or program website, and also to our academic calendar. And you can just sort of take a look at what they are asking for initially. Some of our programs have alternate pathways if you don't have the degree in question, or if you've been out of school for a long time and you can show work experience in the field. There's a few of our programs that offer that. So it's not a straightforward answer. I think it's maybe depending on what your background is and what the program you're interested in going into is.
Okay. So for international accreditation, a student here said that they are a student from Ghana. Do they need to have their bachelor's degree evaluated by an accredited body such as WES or ECE?
No, traditionally we are not asking for WES accreditation unless there is something that we can't confirm on our own. So we have many years of knowledge between us in terms of international credentials and equivalencies. And right now, I would say apply with what you have. If there's anything that we think is missing, we will reach out. If we need to go a step further and say we can't determine accreditation on our own, at that point, we might ask you to complete a WES or ICAS credential evaluation.
Okay, here's a question that I'm a master's student from Brazil. I'll complete my master's degree in March 2024. Can I apply for the PhD, whose deadline is February, even without formally finishing the course, or do I need to wait until the next available term?
No, you can apply anytime. The expectation is that you will have successfully completed your program and been awarded your degree prior to starting the program at Waterloo. So we receive a number of what I would consider applications from students who are in progress in their current program. You'll provide a copy of your documentation that shows your coursework and any other milestones completed to date. And then should you be successful in offered admission, we would assign what we call an admission condition that basically says, please provide us with a copy of your final transcript showing the complete set of course marks and awarding of degree by said date. And we try to do that. It's mid-July for fall, and that gives us time to complete conditions and set everyone up to successfully matriculate, which is just making them active in their program ahead of that deadline, which is in August usually. So short answer, yes. Long answer, see previous.
You did already touch on this, but there's been a few questions that have come in again about this. So are application decisions made based on a first come, first served basis, or as long as you submit your application before the deadline, it will be considered?
So normally, yes. So as long as you submit your application and before the deadline, I think it's important to know what that means for the program you're applying to. So as I said, some programs understand that they have, we'll just say Feb 1 is their deadline for fall. And they know that applicants are going to be completing or starting their application potentially on February 1, which means that they will not have references completed. So they give applicants maybe 10 days to 2 weeks to make sure all of the additional documentation is in. And we have some programs who say Feb 1 is actually the cutoff. So we think you should have all of that completed 2 weeks prior to the deadline. And in those cases, again, on the program page, you can see what's required for each program. What I'm seeing right now is that a number of our programs will wait for the application deadline to have passed so that they can look at the fulsome applicant pool and say, we want to take, the top cohort or the best matched or the, whatever, however it works for them in terms of what they're looking for. And then we have the idea that if there are early applications that have been completed and it is a strong candidate, there is a chance that they could be made an early offer. So if we're dealing with a set number of spaces that are available, then it's possible that an early strong application might receive that early offer and might take one spot. So the next group of applications that are reviewed, there might be one less spot for us to have available. So it's just things to keep in mind. So it's not the same for every program in every department, school, or within every faculty. It's a little bit different. So that's why I sort of say with a grain of salt, like you just have to be aware that there can be changes. I know in our Faculty of Science, offers come out quite a bit later than some of our other programs. And then we have some unique professional programs and course-based programs. Some of them are online, and they also make late offers right up until the cutoff. But then they have our online programs are going to have a very different number of spots available than our on-campus in-person programming.
Okay, so a question about submitting an application.
Yep.
Will you receive a confirmation email after everything has been checked? So I'm assuming they mean once they've submitted their application documents. Will they receive any confirmation email?
No. So it's really your responsibility to keep an eye on your Quest account, your Student Center in Quest, and see. So you're the one in charge of all of your application material. So you know when you've done that. Really, the only thing you're waiting for is your references. And so you can keep an eye on your Student Center. You can access it on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer. It's very easy. You will only receive an email from us when a final decision has been made. or if by chance during our review process, if at our level we decide we need some additional information from you, and you might receive communication from your program that's a little bit different. So they may acknowledge your application, they may let you know that it's under review. It's very different for each of our programs and faculties. And then again, if they are looking at your application and they need additional information, they might reach out with questions.
Okay, so for our international students whose transcript may not be written in English, would an official translation be required at time of application?
Yes, please. Yep.
So here's another international applicant inquiry. I have finished my bachelor's degree, but my official transcript will not be ready until after the deadline. What should I do? Should I get my unofficial transcript translated?
Yes. So, and it actually works well because we can accept unofficial transcripts at the time of application. So I would say, take your unofficial copy, have an official translation, and then when your final official transcript is available, if we need it, we'll ask for it. If not, it would only be upon offer of admission that we would ask for that final official.
Is there a way to know which programs will potentially have more applicants and hence more competition?
You, we don't publish stats, but I would suggest that we have some really popular programs in electrical and computer engineering. So within the Faculty of Engineering, computer science is another one. Data science is also competitive. I would say most of our engineering coursework co-op streams have had really high competition for a low number of, or like a small number of spots available. So that's something to keep in mind. And then really for some of it, it's not even, how competitive it is. It comes down to if you're in a coursework program, it's a different set of criteria versus that research-based programs where even in those programs that have a smaller number, if a faculty member is required to supervise, then that's the key. And that's often what will sort of slow things down.
Okay, a question here. If I'm interested in a program, do I just need to order my transcripts from my international university and upload them myself in Quest in a PDF format?
Yes. If that's the only way you can get a hold of a copy, then yes, that's what you would do. I know, like for our students at Waterloo, within our Student Services Center, they can order an unofficial copy, and it'll print a PDF for them. So, and there's no charge. They don't need to order an official copy to upload it. Unfortunately, if you don't have access to that and you don't have any other unofficial copy, then that would really be the only way to do it. We would not consider that an official final copy because it's being uploaded by you, the applicant, and is not coming to us directly from the institution. So we would still ask you for a final official copy if an offer was made.
It's said on the website that Masters of Engineering are expected to be self-funded. Does that mean that there will be no chance of scholarships um, um, either at time of offer or during the program for a coursework program?
Most often that is true. We do have a searchable awards database where you can take a look at and input sort of the criteria around what you're looking for. So whether you're international or domestic, faculty, what faculty or program you're in. Um, we have some awards for women, some awards for Black and Indigenous folks. So it's really criteria specific and you could have a look at that. But traditionally, yes, there would be very little funding available at the coursework level.
Regarding finding a supervisor, I think you've touched on this a bit, but this question is still coming in. So I have been unable to get a supervisor for my PhD program. Can I still apply?
Again, yes, you can apply. I would say be very aware of the program requirements. So we know that there are some programs that want you to have made that supervisor connection or supervisory connection before you apply. So basically, they want to know that you have someone who has said, yes, I'm interested in working with you, and willing to accept your application. And I know biology and earth sciences are two programs that come to mind where that is something that they're asking for. And we have many other programs who are more than happy to circulate your application and see if they can find a potential match internally.
Would I be able to use co-op resources offered by the University of Waterloo if I am in a thesis-based program?
No. Although there's a slight caveat, I think. There may be some jobs that fall outside of the official co-op placement stream that are available for you to see via our co-op system, but you wouldn't have access to the full co-op job placement workflow. You have to be involved, you have to be enrolled in a co-op stream or a work integrated learning program that requires you access a job placement through co-op.
Thank you. That concludes the amount of questions that we have that are general to be answered live, Julie. We do have a few questions still pending that are more program specific that we'll be answering on the back end.
Great. So I'll give people maybe just a couple of minutes if they want to ask a more general question for us to answer live. Otherwise, we'll probably wrap this up and we will continue to answer questions in the background so that anyone who's posted a question to us will receive an answer.
I see one that came through actually now that might be good. You did touch on this briefly, but somebody asked, are thesis-based programs all fully funded?
So fully funded is a interesting interesting terminology. So we have minimum funding guidelines at the master's level, which means some of our programs will offer X dollars of funding, and it's sort of varied across programs and faculty. So some funding may cover your full cost of program and some may not. And I think that's important for you to understand the cost of the program and then be able to compare that in your offer to know how much of your funding will then be applied to tuition. Will there be any remaining for you to say cover living costs? Because it's not necessarily guaranteed that your $20,000 will cover enough of your program. Okay. I think that's a wrap. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks so much, Steph, and we'll see you again next year.